truthfully, what worries me the most about this one isn't the title. It's some of the words in the thumbnail that clearly are just like they have me going like, oh god, what am I going to do this time? I think I already did that one though.
So, MMA, mixed martial arts. What is the difference? But Greg, there is no difference between MMA and mixed martial arts. Yes, there is. I
Technically.
do say that there is, and I'm going to tell you how there is and what it is in this week's episode.
This one's way closer up.
Greg Wall.
Unless it zooms out, which it does.
Like I said before,
Must have forgotten about
there's
that.
a difference between MMA and mixed martial arts. Even though MMA stands for mixed martial arts, when you say MMA, you are talking about a sport. But when you say mixed martial arts, you are talking about a concept, a pretty brilliant one at that. When you're taking mixed martial arts, that's actually
That cut there was likely because
you're
I forgot what I was on about halfway through a sentence.
and hybridizing them. You're substituting the strengths, so you're substituting the weaknesses of one for the strengths of the other, and you're getting this kind of beautiful mess of style that ends up working. That's why MMA stands for mixed martial arts. The sport of MMA is of mixed martial arts because that's why
This one might have had
MMA is essentially
some
its own
actual
style,
pre-thought into
whereas
it.
mixed martial arts is a concept. So, for example, the style of MMA will actually teach you pretty similar things across their techniques. They'll teach you strikes. They'll teach you hand strikes, like from karate. They'll teach you kicks, like usually from Muay Thai, because that's usually where they come from. Sometimes they'll teach you Taekwondo-esque kicks, and they'll also teach you wrestling and Jiu-Jitsu. So there's usually between MMA gyms, that's a very specific style of mixed martial arts that is generally like kind of a sweet hybrid of the best of as many worlds as they could get it from. Whereas
It is interesting too because there's a lot of very oddly consistent things between just other gyms that I've been to. You don't really have other styles. Like what I'm trying to get at is they'll usually teach you to do the baseball bat style kicks where you're supposed to swing it so hard that you're going to carry all the way through. They all generally agree on that one. Without putting a whole lot of focus into snapping kicks. Both definitely have pros and cons. But it is oddly, almost surreally similar. How similar, damn it. It is almost surreal how similarly they'll actually teach you what techniques and strikes to do rather than what they are focusing on. I think that just depends on the coach, and they usually have more than one different person with their own specialty instructing.
also trying not to overload because because if you try to take from as many martial arts as you can, there's going to be overlap. There's going to be sensory overload because if you're trying to, because generally you only need a few styles mixed together to get a good mixed martial artist. You don't need everything to do everything.
Specialization may be for insects, but the jack of all trades is the master of none. It's that argument all over again. Some people just know jiu-jitsu and they can defend themselves perfectly fine, and good on them for it. But
because generally the styles that MMA cover are pretty solid as they are, because you've got the kicks that come from Taekwondo and Muay Thai. You've got the strikes, usually from say boxing. Usually it's actually boxing rather than
that's the allergic salute.
And then you've got
It was summer at the time, so I did have runny nose.
Wrestling too while you're at it, and those three styles, those kind of the boxing, the kicking, and the wrestling. That's generally the three elements of a fight that's been broken down into those three styles, and there's three different aspects of the octagon's domain. that are covered because
The fight
either
realm.
you're punching someone, or kicking somebody, or wrestling somebody. And then, of course, technically, you might be throwing it.
There's only so many different ways that a human body can use itself as a weapon, and yeah, it kind of boils down to that.
Elbows and knees too, and that's a very Muay Thai thing, because Muay Thai is also.
It's not unique to Muay Thai. Muay Thai did not start the elbow phenomenon, but they did popularize it. We'll give them that.
The signs of 8 limbs, as in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you've got all those elements that have combined together to create MMA. But mixed martial arts is a concept of anybody who's hybridized 2 or more different styles. Like, for example, my mixed martial arts is that combination of karate, Wing Chun, historical European martial arts, Eskrima, and a bit of American Kempo while we're at it, because I did do American Kempo for a while. And then you got, I already said Wing Chun, right?
Yes, you did.
Generally, when one thinks of MMA or mixed martial arts as the concept that it is, they think of MMA fighters when they think of mixed martial arts, but it's not always been that way. Like, I mean, you could say that the pioneer of mixed martial arts.
He's gonna say Bruce Lee, isn't it? He's gonna say Bruce Lee. He's gonna do it.
Very much its own domain in its.
He's gonna mention that Bruce Lee was the first mixed martial artist. Place your bets now, everyone.
Generally, you only needed to do that. But how do I say that? Because you see.
Ooh, we're starting to get into the episodes where I was getting tired.
Where I was, as much as they do now.
Where I was oddly tired or something.
Wasn't always so connected, and that seems obvious. But when it translates into martial arts, it becomes quite the conundrum because generally you wouldn't usually fight somebody who's fighting with a.
I actually am a little tired. I woke up earlier than usual
and
today.
That's because you usually didn't travel all that much. I mean, the average person who, even if they were trained, would be fighting against people trained similarly. Like, for example, in Europe, you'd usually fight other Europeans when you're fighting or sparring, because say you live in North Italy, you would probably be more likely to come across another European fighting style, like say Savate, which is the French martial art, kickboxing and cane fighting. And it's absolutely brutal too because there was actually a very famous fight, I believe, between a Savate guy and a Taekwondo guy, where the Taekwondo guy had broken both the Frenchman's arms, but the guy was not about to give up. He ended up knocking out his Taekwondo master opponent with his kicks from Savate.
I'm gonna look up that right now because that actually is kind of bothering me.
To grapple like a jiu-jitsu, you usually don't go to an MMA gym to learn to fight on the streets because MMA is a sport. Mixed martial arts.
Well, that's an accord way in.
Not to say you can't learn MMA on the streets. It just probably is not going to be your best bet. It's probably. I hope you're not.
Granted, MMA gyms can teach you some self-defense stuff, and they'll do it. MMA gyms often do have self-defense programs.
I hope you're walking into an MMA gym to learn how to fight in the octagon because that's generally what it's for. Because the octagon has a lot of rules, and that is the.
Granted, you might live in an area where there's just MMA
gyms. I did not do too well in my first octagon fight because I was too worried about what I do, and that
a little gripe about my hometown. I might share it a bit.
But anyways, you've got the concept versus the sport. The concept integrates itself into the sport, and the sport has influenced the concept. There's really no question about that. Because of the boon that MMA has gotten, traditional martial arts make no mistake.
I think it's going to be mostly me talking about the same stuff for a while.
Traditional martial arts, especially not in Washington anymore. I mean, you know how often I search up kickboxing tournament or just karate tournament in Washington State? No, I don't get any of that. It's all like MMA, and it's usually all up north of Seattle or down in Oregon or in Spokane. Like, why do I live in such a dry area when it comes to combative sports? It has annoyed me to absolutely no end, and I am...
It's not even that I could get, kickboxing or MMA. It's just that, the only, regular event, I think, was, a jiu-jitsu event at Green River. I don't, and I can do a few things, but not nearly enough competition level stuff. It's just, I don't know. And I feel like you need, frankly, an offensive amount of connections in order to get there. And connections is like the one thing that I've been completely devoid of my entire life. Neither I nor my family knows people, and unfortunately, that's probably exactly what you have to do, and that's probably what stops you from doing a hell of a lot of things. In fact, it was I had to do quite a bit of uh, digging and sniffing around just to find Blue Forge back when I was in high school because of how egregiously connection heavy everything was, and I even had to, I just had to. Ugh. Anyways.
Digressing again, and I'll do something about it, I'm sure.
Why do I live in such a dry area? It's because my mother's a idiot and decided to live in, here. Yes, I get it. It was either this or, small town Northern California or something. But, why were your options dull or dull? I might honestly have to stop this early because I'm getting both blurgsome about how much of a drought this area is. Where it's small town bullshit boredom without the excuse of being a small town. And I'm also getting a little bummed because he mentioned something earlier, that being the first time I was in the Octagon, and I'm still really not over it. I still have. It's, yeah, it didn't go well, and I'm still not over it because I've yet to do anything that considers myself redeemed. So, tell you what, I'm just gonna stop this right here before I really go spiraling down. I'll watch the rest of this episode. I'll probably put some text in, that says what I thought of it. But right now I need to stop.